Okay. So the parsha starts as if with a declaration that you expect that this is the beginning of the Noach story, but really, a few verses before, the Torah told us about his birth, and already in his birth there was something very unique, very different than all the previous generations. We go back and we see that there was meaning to his name. When Lamech, who was his father, gave birth to him, or his mother and his father, Lamech and his wife, when they were 180 years old, they begot a son. So let's focus on that verse and look at that verse. So here's the so if he asked, why am I being called Noach? You see the slide? No?
No, Noah's name and destruction of the world.
Okay, wait, let's try again. Okay, why am I called Noach? You see that?
Right. Yes.
Okay. So so far, really, only Cain there was a reason given to why he was called Cain from the word kana, kaniti yeshet Adonai. And now, for the second time in the biblical story, the Torah gives a reason. So here's the key verse here. Let's try to break it down before we see the English. Yenachamenu, what is nechama? What does that mean?
Comfort.
Okay, so this person will comfort us from maaseh. Maaseh, what's maasim? Maasim tovim?
Work.
Deeds.
Deeds. So he'll comfort us from our deeds. And mi'itzvon yadeinu, what's atzuv?
Atzuv is sad.
Sad. So maybe the sadness, the pain of our hands. Min ha'adama, that's relatively easy, from the land. That erara Adonai, that God cursed. Arul, from the word arul. So now let's bring it all together. And this is Professor Fox's translation. May this one comfort our sorrow from our toil, from the pains of our hands, coming from the ground which Adonai has cursed. What does that even mean?
Got me.
It's bewildering, it's puzzling. And it seems that the key word here is nachamenu, right? I mean, no other word here even is similar to Noach, but even that's debatable, whether Noach comes from the comfort, nechama, because what's the problem? That we'll see in a second. Let's see another translation that has a little bit differently. The JPS that we use in shul, it has this. Any volunteer to read?
Okay, this one will provide us relief from our work. Oh wait, you're in the way there. I have to. Okay, and from the toil of our hands, out of the very soil which the Lord placed under a curse.
Okay, so they don't talk about comfort, but talk about relief. And I'm missing the sadness, right? I'm missing here the itzvon yadenu. They kind of glossed over it. But really, this verse is composed of 4 key elements. So lenachem, we're going to talk about that in a second. The maaseh, deeds, and itzvon yadeinu, atzuv, something about sorrow and pain, which we are all feeling actually now today, these days, and adama. And we're going to see that these are 4 key elements which will play a role maybe in understanding this verse. But now let's go back to lenachem. That actually has 2 meanings in the Torah. Yenachamenu, lenachem, one meaning is, yes, comfort, but there's another meaning.
Sorry.
What is it? Anybody?
Changing one's mind.
So Charlie says in other places in the Torah, regret is the meaning of lenachem. And I want to show you an example. So for the plain meaning, maybe the more common meaning, we have a verse about Jacob when he was told that his son Joseph was eaten by an animal. He said, the Torah says, to comfort him. But now to Charlie's point, after the sin of the golden calf, Moses intervenes. God wants to destroy the entire people of Israel. Moses intervenes and convinces God to, so to speak, change his mind. And the Torah says, "Vayinachem Adonai al hara'a asher diber la'asot le'amo." I found a translation that says, renounced the punishment. It could also be regretted the punishment. So we see two different meanings here of the word lenachem. So now going back to Noach, which meaning fits more the verse about this person is going to lenachem us from our deeds and from the sadness of our hands, from the ground which God has cursed. Which
Comfort.
meaning? So the commentaries are struggling with this verse, with this word actually. And let's see what the Seforno in the 16th century says. Any volunteer to read the Seforno?
Okay. Lamech prayed that this son would provide him with the ability to take a rest from his heavy labor. The root of the word Noach is minucha, rest, retirement. The word is also used in connection with giving one a respite from one's enemies, as in Esther.
So he goes in a totally different direction. He says it's Noach, it's menucha, lanuach. And does it have anything to do with the flood? What do you think? No, I don't, right? No connection. So I'm going to call it the no connection interpretation. So yeah, he was later on, this whole new story develops about being saved from the flood because he was righteous. But at the beginning of his life, Lamech just wanted him to be able to be a somebody who can provide him with maybe new mechanical means to work the land, and that will bring rest from his heavy labor. And we're going to see that more explicitly in other commentaries. And so the way the Seforno reads this verse, it's lanuach, menucha, because when was the land cursed? It was cursed when Adam, right, sinned, and God said, by the sweat of her brow you shall eat your bread. So that's Seforno's take on it. But then we have the Ibn Ezra, and how does he interpret this verse? Any volunteer to read the Ibn Ezra?
I can read.
Yeah.
Lamech was informed by Adam, who was a prophet, that through his newborn child, the land would live. For it was through Noah that the world was preserved. Furthermore, Noah was, as the Bible explicitly states, an expert in agriculture. It is also possible that he got this name after his agricultural successes. Noah, rest, is the opposite of toil, zavon. The meaning of our verse is this one will comfort us, and we will rest, menuach, from the toil of our hands. Moreover, comfort is a relaxation of the heart's pain.
Aha. So is there a connection to the flood in this commentary?
Wait a minute. How can Lamech be informed by Adam when Adam was hundreds of years before, right?
No, but Adam lived to 900. If you do the math, you see that he was still alive when Lamech, because, right, they were each born like 100, 150 years, but Adam lived to 900 and something years.
Oh, okay. Right, okay.
Yeah, if you do the math, it's still possible that Adam could have talked to Lamech. But now we see the first time we see a connection actually to the flood story. So he will comfort us. He is a comfort because he continues humanity. All of humanity is destroyed, but he is the one who survived. And so that's kind of the comfort that he brings to us. But then also, he also maybe, he's not convinced, I think, completely by that. So he says, but he was also an expert in agriculture. I mean, he was an expert in growing in making wine, right? That's the Genesis 9:20. So now Ibn Ezra is suggesting that he was really named after this whole naming. It appears in the Torah early, but this only happened much later. So he had a different name. Maybe his name was Shaya, and really, this Noah thing comes much later, after the flood, after he's saved, after he plants a vineyard and he's very successful in his agricultural, and then they inserted it back in the story of his birth to say, okay, we're going to name him Noah because number one, he was the one who survived, preserved the world. Number two, he had these agricultural successes.
But also Shammai, the famous phrase about the ark came to rest. So I wonder if there's a connection in, his name and the fact that he was the captain of the.
Right. When towards the end of the flood story, that the Tanakh Hativa, very good point. That's also Lanuach. So maybe that's also he finally, after all this deluge, the waters destroying everything. Now it comes to a rest. But the ark came to a rest. Very, very interesting. And that's also, he uses the same verb, but Tanakh Hativa, Lanuach. Now we're going to go see Rashi, who has a very fanciful explanation, totally novel approach. And he has a problem with all these, the previous approaches with focus on Lanuach, resting, because what's the problem? Look at the word Yinachamenu. Isn't there, if it was the root Lanuach, what's an extra letter? What's not explained by that? Right? What's the root of Yinachamenu, of comforting?
Nachem.
Nachem. But Noach has no mem. Noach has no mem. So let's go back to the verse. Here. If it's comfort, Noach, here's the name, Noach. But Nachamenu has 3 root letters. So now Rashi is going to take everybody to task on that issue. Okay, so let's see what Rashi says. Okay, any volunteer to read Rashi? Okay, all right. He will give us rest, Yanach mimenu, from the toil of our hands. Before Noah came, they did not have plowshares, and he prepared these tools for them, and the land was producing thorns and thistles when they showed wheat, because of the curse of the first man, Adam, but in Noah's time, the curse subsided. So Noah is the inventor of the plowshare. And it's not comfort, it's rest. Because if it were comfort, it should have had a mem. He should have been called, you'll see in a second, Rashi continues. If you did not explain it that way, however, but rather from the root nachem, comforting or regretting, the sense of the word does not fit the name Noah. And you would have to name him Menachem.
True. Okay.
Right? So, but the problem, what's the difficulty with Rashi's explanation?
Where did the plowshares come in? He just made that up?
Oh, he's quoting a midrash. Excellent point. So Jones says, wait a minute, this is an important invention, and we just heard earlier in the parsha about 3 inventors, and they were all mentioned very explicitly. There was Yaval, who was the father of those who dwells in tents and amidst herds, Avi Yoshev Oelu Mikneh. Then there was his brother Yuval. He was the father of all musicians, all who played the lyre and the pipe. Then there was Tzila's son, Tubal-Cain. He's the father of all the forged implements of copper and iron. Now, music is important, but plowshare, I think, is way more important. So, and you're not going to tell me that Noah invented the plowshare? You tell me about these inventions? And so, very difficult explanation, very difficult midrash. I'm not convincing at all.
No, what I'm having a problem with the cursed land. That's what I'm having a problem with, because several places here that you're talking, several of the explanations talk about the cursed land. And so when is land cursed? Land is cursed when it doesn't it doesn't produce. And why doesn't it produce? Maybe there was a drought. And all of a sudden, that the heavens opened up and then there was a flood. But maybe there was a drought. And if there was a drought and people can't eat, people get very angry. And so there has to be maybe a reason why the people were so problematical.
Aha. Interesting. So okay, so I see, so you're suggesting that there was drought and that's the curse. But I think since we are so close to the story of the Garden of Eden, the sin of Adam, where the Torah used that same word arul, cursed is the land, by the spread of your brow you shall eat bread, etc., etc. You're gonna have to work very hard the land. Then I'm not sure it's a drought problem. I think it's like the general idea that man has to work really hard to earn his bread. And that goes to because of the word arul. Arul, when God cursed Adam, he actually said arul ata. He gave him a curse. Just as he cursed the snake. But it's a possibility. Interesting idea. So let's continue. So after reading these three commentaries, what's your preferred interpretation of Yenachamenu? So I left the Hebrew word. May this one, Yenachamenu, will give us rest, will comfort us from our toil, from the pains of our hands coming from the ground, which Adonai has cursed. Do you think it has to do with anything with a flood or not? Or that it's, he invented something new that helps people toil the land. He invented some invention. For some reason, the Torah doesn't tell us. I don't think it's a plowshare. That's so important. It would have been mentioned, but maybe something else. Or maybe it's just an expectation. Remember, this is his father explaining his name. Or do you think maybe it was added on later? So we saw different interpretations. But now, what's very, very interesting, that a few verses later, the Hashem declares that his intent to destroy the world. And this is the verse. Then Adonai was sorry that he had made humankind on earth, and it pained his heart. Adonai said, I will blot out humankind whom I created from the face of the earth, everything, etc., everything that's on the earth, from man to animal. Is there anything in these verses that reminds you of the verse of the naming of Noah? So in the English, you can't really see it. So now I'll show you the Hebrew. Any volunteer to read the Hebrew? Neve?
I can read. Yeah. Vayinachem Adonai ki asa et ha'adam ba'aretz v'yit'atzev el libo. Vayomer Adonai emche et ha'adam asher barati me'al pnei adama.
So now any ideas, any word connections to the verse where Noah was named? I think you stressed it, Neve, when you read it.
Whole thing from the beginning to the end. Not a bit of it.
So I'll show you the next slide. Compare and contrast. And then we'll try to highlight it with colors. So when Noah was named, right, his father, they said, Zeh Yenachamenu. What word corresponds to that?
Noah.
Word.
But do you see the slide?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Vayinachem, right?
Mm-hmm.
And here, it's that other meaning of Vayinachem. It's God regretted, God renounced. And then we have Mima Aseinu here. What's the corresponding word in the divine declaration?
Ki asa ha'adam.
Asa. So we have the Asa. So that we colored purple. And how about Mi'itzvon Yadeinu? Remember that meant from the sorrow of our hands, from the pain of our hands. What corresponding word has?
Vayit'atzev el libo.
Vayit'atzev. And God sort of became sad in his heart, so to speak. And so we're going to color that with the light blue. And then finally, Adama. That's easy to spot.
Ha'adam.
Al pnei ha'adama. So those four key elements repeat a few verses later in God's declaration. So what's the connection? That's what we're trying to figure out now. And so we're going to watch a short video by Rabbi Foreman, where he's the one who found this connection. It's the four key elements repeated with the same four key words when God declares to destroy the entire earth. God regrets creating man. So I want to show you his explanation and then discuss his approach.
So it all sounds very nice, sounds very hopeful, but here's the chilling part. If you fast forward not 6 verses ahead, you get to the verses that describe God's decision to bring the flood, God's decision to destroy the world. Because Lemach lives in the generation which is right before the flood. Now listen to God's decision to destroy the world as described by the Torah. Chapter 6, verse 6. Vayinachem Hashem, and God regretted ki asa et adam ba'aretz, that he had created man in the land, vayit'atzev elibo, and he was saddened to his heart. And then God said, Emcha et adam asher barati ma'al pnei adama, I will wipe out man that I've created from the face of the earth. Now, if you pay careful attention to the words here, you find a very fascinating but very chilling thing, which is that God's declaration in creating the world exactly echoes Lemach's declaration upon the birth of Noah. These are the words to look for. Go back to Lemach's declaration. Ze yinachamenu, word number 1, yinachem, comfort or regret, has both meanings. Mima asenu, this one will comfort us. Mima asenu, from our deeds. Word number 2, deeds. Mi'itzvon, word number 3, sadness. Word number 4, min ha'adama. Ze yinachamenu mima asenu, mi'itzvon yadenu min ha'adama, asher Hashem. This one will comfort us from the sadness of our hands, from the earth that God has created. But if you take those 4 words, Yinachem, Ma'asenu, Me'itzvon, and then Adama, you will find them repeated in this exact same order in God's decision to destroy the world. Vayinachem Hashem, there's word number 1, and God regretted, but it's the same word for comfort, going back to the declaration of Lemach. Ki asa, there's word number 2, that he had made man in the land, vayit'atzev elibo, and he became saddened. There's itzavon, sadness, word number 3, and then as if on cue, God says, I will wipe out man, me'al pnei adama, from the face of the adama. There was word number 4. It's impossible to resist the conclusion that for some strange reason, God is mimicking Lemach when he decides to destroy the world. The declaration for destroying the world has as its prototype the naming speech that Lemach gave for Noah. Now, why would that be? So I want to propose a theory to you. It comes from Rashi. Rashi makes a very innocent little comment in describing Lemach's declaration. Lemach said that this one, Noach, will comfort us. That's why he's named Noach, from the word Yinachem, to comfort. This one will comfort us. Comfort for the curses of the land. How would Noach comfort mankind for the curse that God had placed upon the land? The sages of the Medrash said that Lemach saw prophetically that Noach would be the creator of the plow. The plow would be a form of comfort. We wouldn't have to deal with the curse of the land anymore. I want to suggest that that was the straw that broke the camel's back. That comfort, the declaration of the plow in the world before the flood, for the reasons of comfort, and not just the creation of the plow, but the significance that mankind attached to the plow would comfort us, is the reason to destroy the world. Why? The answer is because the plow could never comfort you. But what is comfort all about? When do we achieve comfort? How do we achieve comfort? When we're racked by a terrible loss, how do we get comfort from a loss? Comfort involves a kind of change in perspective. There's a kind of mourning which you can't get comfort for. It's called aninut, terrible, pain, searing grief before burial. But after burial, there's a new kind of mourning. It's called avelut. Avelut, aleph, beit, lamed, is the same word as aval, but An Avel, a mourner, asks himself a question. But the question has no answer, and the question is, how could this have happened? Why did this happen? And the only thing the Avel can do, ultimately, is say, but it happened. It happened anyway, and Avelut is the stage of butness, of neverthelessness. It happened, and I must deal with it. It's a change in perspective. It's a willingness to accommodate the uncomfortable reality. Ze yinachamenu mima'asenu, Lamech said, this one will comfort us. He's going to create the plow. It'll allow us to live, to accommodate ourselves to an uncomfortable reality. What were the purposes of the curses? The curse of the land, the sadness of the land. Why was it so sad to toil in the land, such that the language for the curse should be that you'll work the land by the sweat of your brow and you'll eat it in sadness? What's so sad about work? The answer is when work is just work, it's not sad, but when work is toil, when work could have gone easier, but it goes harder, then it's sad. There's a futility involved, and then the sadness is a reminder. Things could be different. The curses in the wake of the tree of knowledge, in the wake of the murder of Hevel, were curses that alienated us from land, and they alienated us from God. We hid from God, and when we worked the land, it would no longer give its power to us. It would be sad. We would toil. Land and God. There's a fascinating comment that the Ramban makes. The Ramban says that when God said, Na'aseh Adam b'tzalmenu kidmutenu, let us make man, the us was because God was speaking to the land. God said to the land, you contribute the body, and I will contribute the soul. We together shall make man. So land and God stand as man's creators, but we become alienated from our creators, land and God, in the wake of the tree of knowledge. And that alienation grows after Cain and Hevel, and it grows and it grows. And when will it stop? And what's the point of that alienation? Why make curses that alienate man from God? God doesn't want us to be alienated. The answer is, there's a homing beacon we all have. To come back to our Creator. We were once one with our Creator. We always want to come back. We never want to be separate. And the more you become alienated, the stronger the homing beacon becomes. The stronger you want to come back. And that's the point of the curses. The curses are understand the consequence of the sin. Understand how alienated you become and desire to come back. Feel the sadness, the toil, and return. When would God say the time has come to give up, to just destroy the world? It comes when you find comfort in all the wrong places. It comes when you find comfort in the plow. The plow is a technological solution to a spiritual problem. It's a way of taking Tylenol so you don't feel the sadness anymore. We can work the land with a plow. We can accommodate ourselves to this uncomfortable reality. We don't have to deal with the alienation anymore. We can inure ourselves to it. It's at that moment that God says, you say that you'll comfort yourselves with the creation of the plow. You're giving up on the relationship. There's no way that you'll ever come back. I have no choice but to start all over again. And God uses the exact same language that mankind used to comfort themselves in the plow.
So that's his theory. Is that convincing? Are you persuaded that that's the great sin, that they found comfort in the plow? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it seems to complete something, since Noah was very much criticized, I believe, by commentators, that he kind of had a downfall, certainly at the end when he winds up dead drunk. So with his plow, he plowed, he had wine and inebriating drinks and all that. So that seems to be consistent.
But I mean, the Torah then talks about the generation being very wicked and doing violence and theft, and to pin everything up on this plow, I find that a little bit extreme, or too I understand he's saying the plow is finding comfort in the wrong place, but there's nothing per se wrong with technological advances, right? And later in the parsha, we're going to have
Yes, that disturbed me. That
Yeah.
that view that somehow technological advance somehow some negative something about it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So I said it's
But
consistent.
he didn't say. But wait, but he didn't say it's negative. He said it was negative in that it replaced God, not the
Yeah.
technological.
yes,
Yeah.
Well,
Oh,
isn't it ironic though that Noah, who invents the plowshare, which makes it so it's not so much toil, is the one who God saves of all the people on the earth. You think in a way Noah should be punished for finding a get around of God's curse on mankind, rather than rewarding him
yeah.
for that.
Good point. He got rewarded in the end. Yes, everybody else died. So, so yeah.
Okay.
Any other thoughts?
Well, I don't buy this, or I can't accept this notion that the technology it leads you ipso facto to a negative behavior.
Right.
So I could argue. So if you can get your job done in 4 hours, then you got 4 hours to study Gemara. Now, if you don't study Gemara and you look at your cell phone all day, you know, that's a different issue. So what? Mankind should be stuck with the hoe and has no time for study Torah? I don't know. I don't buy it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Okay.
but if the idea was that that mankind then believed that they were smarter than God because God had given them a punishment. Now they've got, something to jailbreak, and they say nanny poo poo can't hurt me. So that's what happens.
So interestingly, later in the parsha, the Tower of Babel story,
Same
they
thing.
built this tower.
Yeah.
God comes down and mixes up the language, and one commentator, we'll see that as a final thing, talks about that. His name is Rabbi Yitzchak Arama, and he says, when the technological advancement, do you see the slide?
Yeah.
Became an end in and of itself, they do not understand that it's a means to an end to spiritual advances.
That's a good. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I said.
Right. So
You
that I
work
can
4
agree.
hours and then study Gemara for 4.
Right. So with this idea, I can agree, but Rabbi Foreman, I think I was not convinced by it.
No.
All right. So thank you all for joining us tonight, and again, prayers for immediate end to all the violence, and we should all have comfort in our lives.